welcome back to Endurance Icons, where we interview people who are absolutely crushing it in the world of endurance sports. Today, we have a special episode because we have our very first in person, and we're talking all of the people on this podcast are in one room. Today, we have Adam DeJong, or ADJ as we call him. He's a hybrid endurance CrossFit athlete, and we're thrilled to have him here. Adam, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you are fresh off the CrossFit Games. We're going to dive into that. But first, talk to us about what you've been doing for the past few years. What has the years of 2020 till now looked like at a very high level?
So COVID kind of wreaked havoc on my CrossFit training for a few years. And I would say I shifted more towards triathlon and endurance training from 2020 until almost the end of 2022. So it's been an interesting shift, I would say, from like 2014, 2015 until 2019, 2020. I was like primarily like weightlifting, CrossFit, in the gym, competing, training, and then got a taste of my first half Ironman, and then that kind of shifted my focus a little bit from like 2018 to 2020. I was still kind of splitting the years, splitting the training, and then when COVID hit, I almost went 100% endurance until this CrossFit season.
So have you ever tried to qualify for the games before?
Yeah, I would say, every year I do the CrossFit Open, which is the preliminary qualifying for the CrossFit Games. And then from there, the model has changed a bit. So now it's from the CrossFit Open to the quarterfinals to semifinals, semifinals to the games. But this year's the first year I ever tried to qualify for the age group or masters division of the CrossFit Games.
And I don't want it to be lost. Like those of us who know you really well know like what an extraordinary athlete you are. You've done, you've competed at the half Ironman World Championship level. You absolutely crush it in the gym, and you have this seemingly like almost impossible high level performance on both sides of the sport. What do you think both sports play into each other? Like, how is your CrossFit background feeding into your endurance strengths?
Bike power.
Yeah.
He's an animal smashing watts.
It's true.
FTP tests.
Yes.
No, both, they're totally unrelated in a sense, but if you have strength in triathlon, it's not going to hurt you. And if you have an aerobic base in CrossFit, it's definitely not going to hurt you. So I would say they both feed into each other in an awesome way. Since doing triathlon, I would say my CrossFit game has elevated big time because I was always, my conditioning was always strong in CrossFit, but I didn't necessarily train that aerobic energy system properly. So now that since starting actually to train that system, I just find my ability to, stay strong and improve my capacity to do more work in CrossFit has improved a lot.
So do you think it's a combo of like training methods and like pacing, like all of those sort of things that you learned from endurance that have helped you there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like to know, in endurance, the term threshold is used all the time. In CrossFit, it's like the old, it's now becoming a trend, but the old school, terminology was go out as hard as you can and hold on for as long as you can. And now, the best in the world know what their threshold is and try to just ride that razor's edge. And for me, I've got a much better understanding of what my threshold is. And if anything, I've learned that maybe my threshold is higher than I used to think it was. And I'm able to, when you're out there in a half Ironman for 4, 5, 6 hours, you learn that you can push the limits for a pretty long time. So in most CrossFit workouts are anywhere from like 5 to 15 minutes. You realize you can go pretty deep into the pain cave for that period of time. So it's been a big benefit.
It's been really cool to watch CrossFit over the last number of years. I feel like there's more and more of that endurance science and tactics that are leaking over into the CrossFit world, because you see there's swimming, there's biking, there's running events in there. And before, maybe it was a little segregated, but every year I hear even the commentators how different they talk about, like the bike drafting and things like that. Have you noticed that a lot leaking over into CrossFit?
Yes, 100%. And even from a coaching standpoint, all of the best athletes now have there's one famous coach that came from triathlon, Hinshaw, and he's helping the top athletes. I think he helped Jeff Adler this year, build his running capacity. So yes, the lingo, especially, you hear it in the commentators, they're using the terms that you guys are used to hearing in the sport, because it is a bigger part of it.
But you got like a little bit of a step forward in it by having a couple extra years of it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, freaking Iron Man.
Exactly.
Now, the community that you belong to in LP Endurance and Limitless Performance, you have the nickname the Gorilla. Talk to us about how you got that nickname.
Well, it's so funny because in CrossFit, like, I'm not actually that big of an athlete, but in endurance, I'm a gorilla-sized athlete. And not only that, but some of my, body language and actions are gorilla-like. When I get
the bike, I would say your bike form, because you squat so heavy, your knees go out, and you're still like crazy fast on the bike. But yeah,
I'm always, running strong and biking hard. So that's where
I feel like did we give him that nickname?
Yes,
because I feel like when we were coming up with all our best fitting animal emojis.
Yeah, so it was during the pandemic, and we had a group chat, and I was the fox, you were a whale, and it was, I think you originally gave him the gorilla emoji.
And my heavy breathing also weighs into that too.
It doesn't matter whether you're going hard or not, you're breathing heavy.
No, Adam's the opposite. He starts breathing heavy and then actually levels off, which is wild.
When I settle into the pain cave, it just calms down.
I'll never forget, we were doing intervals, or we were doing some sort of 5K. It was a 5K time trial.
Yeah, you were pacing me.
And
you were worried about me.
And you just crushed it. And it's remarkable.
Half a K in, she's like, oh no, this guy's gonna melt.
Yeah. So the community that knows you as the Gorilla, you have a big following, and people really, really care about your journey and have been hugely supportive along the way. So we reached out when we were doing this episode and asked for some listener questions. So we do have a number of those. So we're going to hit you with the first one. Well, we're talking about endurance and CrossFit. Which hurts more?
So in St. George at 70.3 world champs, I had a really, really strong training block leading up to that. So I would say that's the first race that I confidently felt like I could push the limits from start to finish. Yeah. In the past, it was like, my bike fitness isn't quite there, so I got it back. Anyways, so I was able to go to a pretty deep, dark place because I biked super hard and then trying to run off of that. So that was probably the most painful a 70.3 has been. And then, okay, so CrossFit this week was at the games 8 times, not all every workout, but it was beyond the pain cave. We were coming, it was such a close race every single workout that you were just going way beyond your threshold to try to finish that last movement or the last minute of the workout, way past the point. And not to mention it was hot. All the same factors that play in if you're, you got 1K to go in a 7. So it's a different type of pain. I would say in triathlon, you need that grit and mental toughness to dig deep for a long time and not, it's so easy to back off your paces, right? Just take this next K easy, to just keep your foot on the gas pedal for so long is a challenge in itself. In CrossFit, it's more like you gotta flip the switch and just kind of like shut off, all sensors and just go. Not for the whole workout or not for every workout, but for those like tough, dark moments. So my politically correct answer is both.
Well, I was gonna say, there's a part of me is endurance that I'm glad you weren't immediately like, oh yeah, easily one or the other, because
Yeah.
they're both really, really hard, but they're also completely different sports. When you talked about mindset, is there a place, like, where do you go? I know we're gonna talk about mindset in a little bit, but where do you go in your head in how is where you go in your head different between the sports, or is it?
Yeah, like I would say the best comparison would be like a 1 mile race in endurance for most good runners. That's not a very fun race.
No.
It's short, it's max effort. That's what most CrossFit workouts are like.
Fair.
You think you need to be well aware of your limits and your pacing, but at the same time you need to just kind of like shut it off and just push through the pain. So remind me what
where you went in your head, but I think that answers it. Like,
yeah,
comparing where even for our ultra endurance listeners that do, like, I don't know, ultra marathons or Ironmans, it's the difference between one of those ultra endurance versus racing a 5K almost.
right.
Yeah, they're just very different beasts.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
more like a 5K or a 1 mile than it is
Both are badass.
yeah, and in the same but different way.
Yeah.
So I'd love to chat next on kind of your qualifying for this, because I feel like we talked to you early in the year, and I think you had mentioned a little bit about it, but I feel like this really picked up momentum as it went along, and your status in each of those like kind of phases as it started in the open and kept going, you just got more and more momentum. Tell us about kind of your rankings in that and like how this whole thing got rolling.
Yeah. So coming off of 70.3 world champs, it was such a long triathlon season, and I had been the last couple of years, I didn't really have any like super big CrossFit goals for the season. I knew that, November was just going to be super chill, train, but I was tapped out in terms of like competing and racing. And then in December, I would, slowly start to ramp up to what is the CrossFit Open. So stage one of qualifying is the CrossFit Open. It's like from the middle of February till March 1st. And that's where the world, all the athletes at all levels compete. It's 3 workouts. Yeah, they've narrowed it down to 3 workouts over 3 weeks, 1 a week. And in my division, there were 30,000 male 35 to 39-year-olds.
30,000
males from around the world.
Wow.
Some of them would be totally doing it for fun. Some of them would be doing it competitively. But that's where the pool started.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, it goes to the quarterfinals, which was at the end of March, so a month later. So I had the Open, where I think I was ranked in the top 10%. So the top 10%, 3,000 move on to the quarterfinals. Okay, so I think at that point, I was ranked 93rd going in. So that's the same ranking that I ended up in the top 10 with. So then in the quarterfinals, it's now the 3,000 plus or minus competitive athletes that are pushing to like make it to the CrossFit Games. So in that one, I had to finish in the top 30 to move on to the semifinals. So I'm getting more and more fit, CrossFit fit, stronger as I move on, because each month from November to December to January, February, March, I'm getting stronger and my skills are getting better because I just kind of started that training block. So I end up in 93rd going into the quarters, and then I end up in 32nd. So I'm 2 spots out of semifinal rankings, but that's when I learned that once they go through the whole system of, reviewing workouts, reviewing videos, reviewing scores, that people get, penalties and DNF and all that stuff. So I end up in 28th. So now I'm ranked 28th going into semifinals, which is at the end of April. And the testing becomes more and more specific, not more intense, but the open is very like, broad. Quarterfinals, they start to increase the volume of the movements and the weights start to go up. And then semifinals, it starts to become more of like the higher skilled movements. So I'm starting to prep more and more for that stuff. So I get into the top 30. I'm 28th going into semis, but very excited because semifinal workouts historically have been more tailored towards my strengths than like a quarterfinals or an open workout.
And what's your strengths? Would you describe?
More so the open is very like CrossFit skills. There's like the 11 skills of CrossFit, and you just essentially have to like be really proficient at those skills. Then quarterfinals, it's like the higher version of those skills mixed in with some heavier barbells and heavier weights. But then in the semis, it starts to get into more athletic driven movements at a higher volume, at a higher intensity, with more weight. But we had rope climbs, we had bench press, we had shuttle runs, we had barbells, so you can already kind of see it's less CrossFit skill focused and more like athlete driven, because they know at the CrossFit Games it's almost 100% athlete driven because they're going to test your overall athleticism. So then I go through that qualifying stage and I end up like 12th, I think. And then again, crossing our fingers, can I get in and it took a long time. Took, I think, like 10 days to figure out the final leaderboard. And I end up tied for 9th, which technically put me in 10th. So it got me in.
How did you celebrate, or what was that moment when you realized like for sure you were in?
Oh man. So it was like kind of a dreaded moment, and because the sense of relief would have been like season's over. And then like now I'm like, oh my God, like I've never trained for the CrossFit Games. Now I have all of May, all of June, and all of July, a 3-month training block to get ready for the game. So I'm like, holy cow. So yeah, obviously super excited, but at the same time, like scared, terrified, because I didn't know what was ahead. I'd never done like I've always, thought I would succeed at the games, but I didn't know what kind of work went into it.
So I think when you talk about that and like the momentum you kept getting, like Jim Vance talked a lot about that, of like peaking at the right time. And he's like, I want my athletes to be ready at the right time. I almost feel like if you look back on it, like, do you almost think that it was kind of the perfect storm of like, you got this slow build into it, just kept trickling in there. And then it was just, again, that like curve, you were just flying by the time you needed to be.
Yeah, I was building confidence in the process of like, I have a month. I need to train hard for, like 3 weeks. Then I need to trust the process, like what I've learned from endurance. Like I need to taper into this big weekend, and then I just need to hit it as hard as I can. So I did that in the open, and then I did that in the quarters. And then when it got to semis, it was like, okay, we're just going to do this again. So yeah, I was taking all of that momentum from each one and just layering it.
So it's you and 9 other guys that end up making it to the games. Were those guys, when you look back on it, you might not have the answer to this, but were they like always in the top 10 of like these workouts? Was there some names like Dancer that you always saw up there?
I would say the top 5 for sure were always there.
Okay.
I don't know about the other guys. I would probably be the biggest spread in terms of change. I would say they were probably for sure at least always in the top 50, if not in the top 20. But yeah.
Did you have any imposter syndrome at all?
I think I did at the games. I didn't because I was still so just like deep into the like process of qualifying, and I'm not a huge fan of the online qualifiers in the past, and they've never really gone my way, and I never really thrived in them. So I was like, you know, I was believing, but you're blind, right? You
Yeah.
do the workout, you submit it, and until the leaderboard is live, you don't know if your scores are good or bad or not. So it was a stressful process, but yeah, it all like panned out.
So you talked about those last 3 months leading into the games once you knew you were there. It sounded like that was a pretty intense training block because you worked with
Yeah.
Josh from Mammoth, right?
Exactly.
Take us through like some of the highs and lows in that section.
Yeah, so like huge strength block right away outside of like finished 70.3 world champs, got to build back a ton of strength, then get to the open, start to get a little more specific on skills, and then just preparing for these qualifiers. So when it got to games training, it was the first time that I would be like, I already got the strength because we've been working on that for 6 months. I've already got the skills. So now we need to dial up the volume and intensity. And so first hiccup was I had signed up for Tremblant 70.3. So knowing that the chances of making the games were very slim, I was going to do Tremblant before all of this, happened. So when I told Josh, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to still do Tremblant. So the month of May and June were actually not too crazy because I was prepping for the games during the week and then still doing like a normal weekend of 70.3 prep, which backfired because then I got super sick like 2 weeks before Tremblant, which was actually like perfect because then I could be rested and ready for it. But yeah, so that was like on me because we were trying to make a perfect plan, but there's no perfect plan when you combine CrossFit Games training and 70.3 training. So the true games training didn't start till the week after Tremblant was supposed to be, which in hindsight, for me, the best thing happened. It got canceled. For the rest of the club, it was super sad. And they're all getting to race again, so that's good. But what I didn't know about games training is it's all in preparation for 3 or 4 days in a row of like 6, 7, 8 workouts at maximum, 10 out of 10 RPE, and just repeating that. So all of the training is built around like, how can we prepare our bodies to hit it hard today, hard tomorrow, hard the next day? So our training would be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 days in a row, off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, off Monday. So it would be like 3 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off. And we just kept repeating that. And the volume on those days was like mimicking, 3 workouts in a day at the CrossFit Games.
So you would like go at 8, 12, and 4 and do like your workouts those days, or would you go like
in a perfect day? Like on the weekends, I would do that. We would split it up into 3 like smaller sessions where we would try to hit it like not 10 out of 10 RPE, but like close.
Yeah.
And then take full recovery break and then go back at it. So looking back on it now, I understand what I was trying to prepare for. In the moment, it was just like the most grueling, punishing training block that I've ever done.
It sounds all consuming.
Yeah, because you're still doing like your strength work. So one session in the day would be like a big strength session. Then another session would be like an aerobic session. And then another session would be like a Metcon or like a test workout.
Mm-hmm.
So you would still be training all 3 components, and you would be, hitting it hard in all of them. So yeah, it was most of the training leading up, like the RPE is like that in that 7 or 8 range. And almost all of it is like manageable, doable. You can recover from it. But the point of this stuff was like, I don't want you to be able to recover from Tuesday to Wednesday. I want you to be training under fatigue from the previous day so that your body's starting to get ready for the stimulus of being beat up, tired, and then ready to hit it again the next day. So again, in hindsight, it was exactly what I needed to prepare, but at the time I didn't quite know what the heck I was getting into.
So like the training is so intense in that time. What are you doing outside of training to make sure you're not just absolutely haggard coming back day after day?
Yeah, so it was like a 24/7 project of like, when you're in the midst of a huge 70.3 or Ironman training block, like you can't eat enough because you're training. You don't even have enough time between training sessions to like almost consume enough calories to replace the previous one. So it was like this never ending battle. Like I would get up super early in the morning, try to prepare all my food for the day, which would take, as long as an hour in itself.
Gotta feed a gorilla.
Yeah, exactly. And then I would, my sleep actually was, I feel like my body was, over the limit of recovery. So my sleep was actually not very good in the home stretch. Just very like, my body was hot, like I was like running hot, right? So it was on the verge of like, we were trying to find the limit of like, how much training can we do without breaking, right?
Yeah.
So,
and with your endurance, like most of our listeners know what an endurance athlete eats. And I know that like they preparing for an Ironman, it's so much food. Did you change what you ate day to day or the composition of it as you were prepping for the games? Did that look different at all?
The carryover was very, very, very similar. I was using, tons of in-workout fueling, which is again kind of new to the sport of CrossFit because and most of the athletes still are in the phase of like it's candy, it's simple sugars, it's whatever. But I was lucky to, have Precision or F2C or Morton's and making sure that even if the training session wasn't gonna like be that long, I'm still fueling in it just because I know what's coming up. But I would say like, yeah, I went through a ton of glycodurance. I went through, Morton's gels and all that stuff. So that, and then I would do, like you guys always say, like the double breakfast was totally a thing.
Triple sometimes.
Now it's triple. So it was like, there was like the eggs and toast breakfast. Then there was the oats and fruit and protein shake or like scoop of protein breakfast. Then there was lunch with potatoes and chicken or beef and then rice and whatever. And then there was the afternoon snack with yogurt and granola. And then there was dinner. And then there was in-workout fueling. And then there was a before bed snack. So it was a nonstop refueling process. But it actually served me well because at the games, which we'll talk about, like I needed to be prepared for that kind of like, sometimes we didn't have enough time between workouts to totally refuel and have a full meal. We needed to like just use, in workout fueling because we wouldn't have time to digest.
Mm-hmm.
We'd only have like, say you need 2 to 3 hours to digest a meal. We only had 2 hours from when we finished the workout till when we started the next one. And we start the warm up like, an hour before we hit the field or whatever. So.
So we've talked about this a lot on the endurance front, like when you're going after big performance goals and it takes a ton of time. What were some of those things that like Michelle or your team had to like take off your plate outside to allow that to happen? Like whether it was meal prep or taking your classes, like was there things like that you needed to drop to make sure you could perform and be able to actually absorb this training?
I think my IOU list is infinite. I don't know if I'll ever repay it back. Yeah, like our parents and our family helped us a ton with babysitting and just like responsibilities on that end of the spectrum. Michelle and Madison, let's just say if Madison wakes up in the middle of the night, she's not calling for dad, she's calling for mom. So now as I try to repay my IOUs, Like last night, Madison wanted nothing to do with dad in the middle of the night. She wanted mom, and mom just wanted to get some sleep. So now that's another debt to be repaid.
Do you have like a blonde wig that you purchased?
I need a voice and then a wig.
Nice
Maybe some
recording.
perfume or
Yeah.
something. The smell too.
Yeah, and then oh man, so yeah, and needless to say, yeah, my coaching responsibilities, the LP team stepped up huge, and especially in those final 3 weeks, like it was just I could get the 3 hours of training done in a day, which again for most of the listeners is like, oh, it's pretty normal for training for a big race and the final push and the final lead up to it. But it's time consuming, and to absorb it, it's you can't just ignore the fact that the recovery is going to happen. My goal wasn't just to, and it got to this point some days, but my goal wasn't just to like survive the training. My goal was to be able to like execute it to the best of my ability. So that meant like being as prepared as possible for it, which means the recovery as soon as it's over. So
Yeah, I just felt like that was a point that needed to be highlighted.
Yeah.
Like when your demands of that go way up, like something needs to give, and it's
Yeah.
going to be your body if you don't do it. So
Totally,
big athlete
yeah.
for
I
big
would
lesson.
say family, life, business, all took a toll
Yeah.
in the short term for the amazing experience of being able to compete at the CrossFit Games.
It's like a
right?
pro athlete life essentially
Right.
that you almost had to live over that time.
The joke was leading up, as we're releasing Road to the Games episode 3. I'm like, there's a lot of hype for this guy who hasn't done anything yet. So you better bring your A game when it counts. But I was lucky enough to be able to find an extra gear out on the competition floor.
Yeah.
So.
So one of the crazy things we noticed, especially in some of your CrossFit Games pictures, were like every year we've noticed from endurance back to strength season, like your body definitely fluctuates a lot in terms of your body comp. But like, tell us a little bit about like what are some of the biggest factors you think that change between the two? And was this like maybe one of the most drastic changes? Because I don't know if I'd ever seen you quite that ripped in the time I've known you. Like it was wild.
I was like, I can see his 8-pack through his shirt.
It was, I finally figured out my nutrition in endurance season last year. I worked with Kara, and we finally figured out kind of like some of the things I was doing wrong or like could have been doing better. And I think just solving that problem then translated over to like amazing changes this year, because the most fascinating thing is my weight didn't really change. And this is like hard to believe. I was about 190 pounds going into world champs, and I was like pretty much 190 pounds going into the games.
Interesting, because in the past I feel like you fluctuated by 10 or 15 pounds, like lower.
I would go like 187, 188 in endurance season, and then I would go up to like 195 to 200 in CrossFit season. So I would say.
But you talked about like the volume you were doing this time at CrossFit, so maybe that mimicked endurance a little bit more. But yeah, you looked totally different than you do during endurance season.
Yeah, like the muscle mass and just the way I was carrying the muscle was like, that's why I couldn't, when I stepped on the scale like 2 or 3 weeks before, not that it mattered, but I was expecting like 195 or even closer to 200. When I saw 190, I'm like, wow, like it was fascinating to see that I was probably leaner, like not as lean going into world champs as I was going into the CrossFit Games. So maybe I did have less body fat, but in terms of muscle mass, I think there was a significant increase. But yeah, the nutrition, which I figured out last year, like, July, August, I finally like tapped into what I was, maybe off a little bit on. And then that carried over to this season.
Cool. One of the questions we got again from our listeners was, did you have any niggles or injuries in the lead up? Like, were you on the edge of anything or any concerns?
I was thinking about this, and I think I live no matter what sport I'm in, I always live on with the thought of like, I train today with the thought of like tomorrow in mind. So I always am like overly conscious of like, what can I do today to make sure that I don't wake up tomorrow with an injury, or get injured in like, I'll do everything possible to not get injured within a training session for the longevity of the training block. But I got this bicep strain. So one of the big, increases in volume was rope climbs. And we were doing, regular rope climbs, legless rope climbs with a vest on, rope climbs, under fatigue. And it didn't happen in the session, but I ripped my hands on some pull-ups or some rope climbs or something. And then I was kind of compensating for the ripped hands, and it kind of like, carried up the arm, and my bicep ended up being like so tight the 2.5 weeks leading up to the games. Doc Kyle saved me huge on that. We just like worked on it. Every time I saw him, I'm like, okay, we just need to work on it for 5 minutes. Just like free it up. Because it got to the point where like I couldn't, under like flexion, it was so tight that it felt like I had like elbow pain just because the bicep was so tight. I didn't necessarily feel it when I was doing, but it was when I was doing anything with the barbell in the front rack position, or when I was doing like handstand push-ups or coming down into that like loaded position, I would feel it. But anyways, we kept it just good enough that it didn't even cross my mind in competition. But that was the biggest niggle. More systemic fatigue than any like acute fatigue.
That might actually be surprising to people just looking at how demanding some of those events are, but just a testament to like the massive base and years you have under you that doesn't destroy you muscularly.
You would be better than anyone I know at prevention. Like I've learned so much from you in the amount of, you're a perfect example of all of the principles that LP stands for. You follow every single one from the T, whether it's, the training, but also the nutrition and the recovery and all of the other pieces around it. You do that. You check every box, and that's why you can do both.
Yeah, I think it's just because I've been doing, since playing hockey, my body was so beat up that I've dealt with the other side of it where I was like always dealing with something. So once I got like 100% healthy and feeling good, then I'm like, I don't want to go back there. Because I feel like once you get one, then the list just never ends. You're just transitioning from one to the next. And so, yeah, I take a ton of, pride in always making sure I'm on the leading edge of not being.
If you remember, he's the king of like hydration and recovery. Remember the diaper bag for when Madison was being born? He brought BioSteel.
So he's mentioned Madison. For all the listeners who have not yet met Adam. Adam owns a gym with his wife, Michelle, and so we were having a diaper party for his now born beautiful daughter Madison, and is a part of as a part of a diaper party to celebrate the birth of his unborn child. There's a list of questions, and one of the questions that was asked is, what are 3 things that is in a diaper bag? And without missing a beat, the first thing that he yelled out is BioSteel. Like, and that's Adam in a nutshell. Like, of course you have BioSteel.
All I was thinking about was Michelle's hydration during labor.
I never discussed that.
Yes.
I don't think that was on Michelle's list.
It wasn't.
It definitely wasn't.
But BioSteel in a diaper bag has become one of the perfect ways to describe who you are as a person.
I wanted her to have gels and fueling in the delivery room too, but that didn't fly.
How many grams of carbs per hour do you have?
That's what I was thinking. Ma'am, you can't eat in case you need to have a season. Let's not go there.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Final question about prep. You got to prep a bunch with Jack and Emma, who competed in the individuals section and both did like amazing in that. What was that like? And what did you learn anything from them? How did you guys work together?
Yeah, it was an eye-opening experience because, and it was a similar experience at the games. Like, I know these guys are good at CrossFit, but I don't expect them to be such great athletes at everything. And let's just say in about a month of training, I can count on definitely one hand, maybe just on a couple fingers, the amount of workouts that I won versus the amount of workouts that they won. And I just find it incredible that like I work really hard to be at the level I'm at, but then I compared it, someone asked me, I compared it to like if you're an age group triathlete and then you go and train with a pro, it would be a similar feeling. And they're pros. They are 100% pros. And when I'm training with them, I'm definitely a training partner, but I'm definitely not at their level. So it's pretty amazing experience just to get that appreciation. Because when just like a pro triathlete, when they're racing, you don't quite appreciate the level that they're at.
Yeah.
And when we're watching, Jack and Emma and all the other pros at the CrossFit Games, you don't quite appreciate the speed they're moving at and the the demand that's on them. Most people couldn't even complete components of the workout, let alone do what they're doing. So yeah, it was a very cool experience
I feel like I know the workouts you won against them too. I think I saw them in the video where they like swim and bike ones.
Yeah, I totally rigged the Paradise Lake triathlon because I made sure it was somewhere that I knew the course and the conditions so that I had a huge advantage on them. They still are better swimmers than me. Like that's the fascinating part. And like Emma won the bike workout. So like she's actually like if she trained, for just like 6 months, she would be a great cycle. Like this is the coolest part about it. And Jack, I would go to the track with him twice a week, and like he ran a 5:30 mile under a lot of fatigue, like not tapered and prompt. So like they just have the ability to do, everything at a very high level, which was so impressive.
And they're like half your age.
Yeah.
I feel like their athletic maturity is just so beyond their years.
Right. In a sense, like they're half my age, so that means they should be better. But no, in the other sense, like Emma's 18 and Jack is 21. They both have not reached their athletic peak or potential at like not even close.
Yeah.
They're just getting better like every month, let alone every year.
Did you have that maturity at 18 when you were wheel snipe Celia?
Oh man, like
that's hockey scholarship.
That's what we say. Like they train, every Saturday and Sunday at this age. Like, why are they not at the bar until like 2 a.m. and then, sleeping until noon? Like, no, they have no interest in that. Like, what they love to do is train and compete, and that's what makes them pros.
Yeah.
At that age.
I remember when CrossFit first came out, or at least I became aware of it, and their tagline's like the fittest on earth, like the fittest athletes on earth. And I remember grappling with that and looking at like, are they really? Like it's we were talking about like the intensity. I have to say, after being like a fan and following this sport for so many years, I like 100% concede. Like I truly believe that it is the fittest athletes on the planet just because of the breadth. Well, you think about this, the fact that like we swim, bike, and run. We like, and you think of all the athletes we bring on to be able to do so many different sports at such a high level and such a different amount of body movements, being able to lift, but then also to win a bike leg. Like it's such
gymnastics, lifting.
I think it's well rounded. Yeah. What do you think? Like,
I think it's a bold statement because I see like they're not good gymnasts compared to a gymnast at the Olympics. They're not good triathletes or endurance athletes compared to a professional, endurance athlete. They're not that good of weightlifters, although they're getting really close compared to like an Olympic level caliber weightlifter. So like technically, but then on the other sense, like they can run one of the girls last year ran a 3-hour marathon, like
Yeah.
a month after the CrossFit Games. And then like there's another guy who wants to qualify for 70.3 world champs. He's probably gonna do it,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like, man, I still like argue it because I've seen the, you know, the amazing feats in the endurance world. And then I think it's a bold statement, because they don't do anything really like that incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, the amount of disciplines that they're really good at is so impressive.
Yeah, you know, it's a bold tagline. I don't disagree with it, but you also, yeah, you could sit there and add 3 other caveats to anything, like the fittest endurance, the fittest strength, the fittest hybrid athletes. Like, yeah, they're incredible.
It's not taking away from the incredible level. And like when you're a jack of that many trades, you're going to be master of none. But just to be able, I would say, I actually cannot think of any other athlete on the planet that would have that diversity in movement and ability. And when you talk about, I even think of how difficult it is as a triathlete to be good at 3 sports. And like okay at 3 sports. Like to be at the top of your game on like, I don't know, 20 sports. It's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not doing any gymnastics anytime soon.
Yeah. That didn't work.
Yeah, we need a whole nother podcast.
Didn't go so well for me either.
All right, I feel like we should hop into the games here, but before we get there, was this so it's in Madison, Wisconsin, good old cheese hat country. I got my cheese hat from Wisconsin in here. Was this your first time in Madison, or did you have a trip there before?
Not. I did my first Ironman with these two there, and my first and only Ironman. Jess was giving us our pregame mental prep on the side of the road, waiting to get into the Olive Garden for a pregame meal. So it was not my first time in Madison. I got to see the countryside in a totally different way on a bike and running. Although it was a huge advantage to have already been there, because I felt that like sense of comfort that I've been here. I know what, you know, where things are, what it's all about. That it's such a cool town. And we literally biked through the Alliant Energy Center, which is where the CrossFit Games is hosted. That was weird.
We only got to bike through the parking lot.
No, that's literally like they literally have the events like where we biked. It's
too bad they didn't have a running CrossFit event, so you could have run back up to the Capitol building like we did in the Ironman too, like they did the year before.
That would have been. Yeah, they had to carry exactly.
You could have had like 2 photos blown up of whole experience.
I'm sure you're happy to run up to that building.
Still yeah, 2 laps of that run courses. I don't need to see that again.
Oh, I know. So we talked about you had a little bit of comfort going into the games, and like an hour into this podcast, we're finally moving to the actual games. But we wanted to slow down and show like how much work goes into even getting here and what a big accomplishment that is. But your mindset going there, describe that for us.
Yeah, I was so focused on that training block leading up to the games that I hadn't put like a ton of thought into like what it's going to be like competing on that stage. I think it's like being naive about going to your first Ironman event, and you show up and then the hype is, you know, real. So long road trip there, got there, did the athlete check-in, which was cool. An amazing experience. Yeah, we got super spoiled by Noble, which is an apparel company in the CrossFit scene. And that kind of kicked off the excitement. Then it's like, whoa, this is real. Like now we're getting started. So I think there was still so much preparation in those leading up days. We got there pretty early. The check-in was 2 days before the competition started. So I was trying to just like stay calm. You know, usually I'm, as Michelle said, you know, pacing and, you know, getting edgy already. I feel like that didn't happen until like the first workout hit.
Which is good, because in the past it's when you forgot bottles for
see,
your
like
tapers haven't always been the smoothest.
I usually spiral hard. Yeah. So having Michelle literally physically there with me made a big difference in terms of preparation. But yeah, I was just like Jess said, the qualifying and the lead up and just being there with only 10 athletes, like I was just, so pumped and excited just to be there that I kind of took the pressure off myself of like, I'm going to perform at the best level I can. I don't know where this is going to fall because these guys are, insanely fit as well. So yeah, I was trying to just not turn on the, intensity until the first day started.
Cool. So talking about some of the workouts, we don't necessarily need to go through every single one of them, but like, what were some of the real highs and lows? Because it definitely seemed like a roller coaster ride, just seeing like the recaps from Michelle and stuff like that.
So not that we're gonna like go through it, but I'll tell you the kind of like highlights from each workout and how they kind of like set up the whole
I love it
experience. So event 1 was a max lift, which for those of you who know my like strengths and weaknesses in CrossFit, that was going to be like damage control. You get 100 points for each workout. If you win it, if you get last, you get 10 points.
So it's like
more
a 10 point difference.
10 points per athlete because there was 10. If there was 20 athletes, then it would be 5 points per athlete, etc. So it was like the one spot on the leaderboard can make a big difference. So I get out there for my first event. It's like nerve-wracking because I know I'm not going to be the biggest lifter. It's not going to be my event. I just have to, perform the best I can. Josh and I had talked about like what my targets are. I didn't believe him. I thought he was full of, you know what?
You can swear on this.
And I hit those numbers. So like 250 snatch, 315 clean and jerk, which doesn't mean that much, except for the fact that I hadn't hit anything over 225 on snatch in like 3 years. And I hit 25 pounds more than that. And I hadn't hit over 285 on clean and jerk in again, like 2 or 3 years. So that was 15, 30 pounds, call them 30-pound personal bests on each lift. So great start. That got me like rolling into the event. And workout 2 was literally 1 minute after workout 1. So you finish your lift, and then 1 minute I had to switch shoes because I went from my lifting shoes to my, like workout shoes. And then we're on this hot field, and workout 2 was like one that I finished 7th on the lift. So it wasn't better or worse than expected, but the fact that I hit my goals and targets gave me a boost of confidence. Second workout was supposed to be one that I was going to crush. Long workout. I think it took like 12 or 14 minutes, which in CrossFit, that's a long time. You're like at threshold that whole time. And I finished 4th. So now I have a 7th and a 4th. And remember, those workouts are like polar opposites. So the big lifters usually finish lower. So most of the guys at that point, I was like sitting in a good spot. Like I was sitting, although, I was probably in like 3rd or 4th after those 2 events. Then the workout on the first night was called Helen, which was essentially a running workout. It was 400-meter run, 21 kettlebell swings, and 12 pull-ups. But the 400-meter run is significantly more work than the other 2. And you had to do 3 rounds of that. So 1,200 meters of running, and then it was like 90 seconds of running, 1 minute of kettlebell swings and pull-ups 3 times. So I go into that workout, confidence is high, excited for this workout, know that I can finish the day strong. In the first round, I get a no rep, which means you have to redo that rep on the chin-ups. Not a big deal, except I didn't know that my judge gave me a no rep. So I jumped off the chin-up bar and started running for the second loop. He yelled at me. He said, you have to come back and do 1 more rep. And in this workout, this is a workout that came down to a stride length between 2nd and 3rd. So I go do the pull-up, I come back, and by the end of the 2nd round, I'm in like 5th. This is the workout I needed to like, I wanted to win it. I didn't know if I'd win it. But on the 3rd run, everyone had hit it too hard out of the gate, which is no surprise. So I clawed back to second. So from fifth to second in the 400-meter run, I passed 3 people. And first and second, we were side by side. So he started the kettlebell swings before me, but my cycle rate on the kettlebell swings were faster. And he told me after he got a no rep. So he had to do 1 extra rep. So I actually got to the chin up bar before him in the final round, but I was gassed because I was trying to play catch up and I was rushing. So I jumped up to the pull-up bar and didn't get a good grip, whatever excuses. At the end of the day, I was pushing the limit. That's Michelle says, just be proud that you were like pushing the limit to try to win this workout. So at 10 out of 12 reps, I have to drop off the chin up bar and re-grip. And in that drop off the chin up bar and jump back up, he finishes his 12. He runs to the finish line. And then I get in a foot race for second and I get beat by a stride length. So I go from first to third like that, but still an extremely successful first day.
Mm-hmm.
A third, a fourth, and a seventh. Like couldn't ask for anything more. And a sign to myself that like, okay, you belong, like you belong here. You can compete with these guys. You don't have to be intimidated. You had an amazing day 1. Move on, right? So then day 2 starts. Day 2 is the biggest day. That was 3 workouts, but they were 1 and 2 it was really 2 workouts from a preparation standpoint. Day 3 was 3 workouts, 1 in the morning, 1 midday, and then 1 at night, which was the 5K at night. So the morning was this gymnastics chipper. And I knew I'm not the strongest at gymnastics, but it was a long workout. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be fine. I'm going to do great. Needless to say, I was the only athlete left out on the floor and the rest of the athletes were done. Like I had like almost 90 seconds on the floor without them. So it was an amazing experience because like I didn't make really any mistakes in that workout. Some things went better than others, but it was just their ability to do gymnastics better than mine, which I'm okay with. But my mindset around it, which Michelle and I talked about, was really good because I didn't let it bring me down. So I just, I did the best I could. I finished 9th. Because one guy got not heat stroke, but overheated on the first day and he had to quit the competition. So I finished 9th. Moving into the second workout of the day, which was back out on the turf field, a rope climb workout, a deadlift workout, and a sled pull and a sled push workout. So put the gymnastics behind me, get out onto the field and push it hard on a workout that should be like pretty good for me. It was just grunt work. Rope climbing it is a skill, but at that level, it's like everyone can do it. Who can do it under fatigue? The deadlifts were really heavy, 350 pounds. So advantage for the bigger guys a little bit, but deadlifts are strong for me for whatever reason. And then the sled is like exactly what I want, like an implement that just is grunt work. So I would give up some time on the rope climbs and the deadlifts, but then I made up a lot of time on this sled pull. I had done a lot of practice with it at the gym and I was, pretty confident in like the technique I had for it and I was making up time. So each round we would all finish at the same time. But what that meant is we had like 100-foot sled push to the finish line. So there was 3, 4, 5, 4 of us started the sled push at the exact same time. And it was this death march to the finish line. And the sled was so heavy.
The slowest sprint ever.
So somehow I got into this rhythm of I'd do like 10 really fast, hard steps. And then I would stop and rest. Then I would do 10 really fast, hard steps. And I would stop and rest. And I would like pass them. And then I would fall behind them. And then I would pass them. And I would fall behind them. So needless to say, it was a race for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And it was 5 seconds between third and sixth, and
Wow.
I ended up sixth. So it was like
Ideal
I
start to
gave
the
it
day.
everything I got, and then just kind of made like a little mistake with that like weird strategy I was using. So I finished sixth, but again, like 5 seconds out of third. I wasn't mad about it. It was just like I gave it everything I had, and it was fine. And the 5K was coming at night.
It could be easy to be mad after those first two,
Right,
though. Of like the
right.
world's against you. You gotta have memory of a goldfish.
Kind of a shitty start to day two in a sense, like a ninth and a sixth was like, okay, well, that's not as good as day one, the third, a fourth, and a seventh, right? So, but the 5K was at night, and I think the coolest part of the 5K, not the cool, there was many highlights to me. One, in between the sled workout and the 5K, I said to Michelle, I'm like, Michelle, I'm giving myself permission to win this workout. I think oftentimes like you can go into a workout that's supposed to be your workout, and like if someone else looks like they're doing well, you don't let them have it, but like you don't go, they might be going, RP 10 and you forget to go RP 10.
Yeah.
You go 9 and they take it from you.
Mhm.
So I said, you know what? I have to do everything in my power to win this workout for me. So I gave myself permission to win it. And then, the best part was just the strategy of that workout. It was 3 laps. It wasn't 5K. It was 3 miles. So each lap was a mile, and the leaders went out at like a full sprint, like they were doing 1 lap. So our first lap was like under a 6-minute mile. And this is on like terrain that's like so weird. We ran on a gravel road, and then we ran on grass, and then we ran on like mulch for a bit. And it was like super like roll an ankle, a trail. So we ran probably, in my opinion, like maybe not too hard of a first lap, but like pretty aggressive. But then the second lap, we came in just over 12 minutes. So I'm like, okay, these guys are going to be like strong. So if I'm going to win this, I'm going to have to like dig deep here. So when I started, I left the stadium, because you came back to the stadium each time, in like 5th going in to the final lap, with them like within striking range. Like I wasn't in the lead pack. I was like on my own, just like hanging out like 50 meters back of the lead pack, waiting to see what everyone was going to do. A few guys had already dropped off. And I would say about halfway through that final lap, there was a hill. And I knew on that hill that would be the opportunity to like watch people, fade. So I didn't hit the hill like at max effort, but I hit it hard. And by the top of that hill, I was in the lead. So I knew, I'm like, okay, well, this is my race now to win. So I kept the pedal down, knowing that if I don't give them a sniff, then they hopefully wouldn't try to hang on. And there was a young kid, a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old. And I thought for sure he was going to, race me to the finish line. But I used lots of endurance strategy in that one, thanks to Coach Mark. And I paced it properly. And when I passed with authority to make sure that they didn't want to hang on, and they didn't. So when I came into the stadium in the live video that someone took, I was like, okay, so we should see the 16-year-old coming to the stadium first. And then, oh my God, it's Adam coming into the stadium. So everyone was so excited. And I was first one in the stadium out of like a couple hundred athletes, probably, because all the age groups went at once. So it was an amazing feeling. And then, yeah, we had a little celebration after that. And
Veteran move. I love
veteran move. Yeah.
Amazing.
So a cool way to end day 2. Exhausted by this point. And then day 3 was the final day. So going into the final day, 2 workouts left. We knew one workout and we didn't know the other one. The first workout was an endurance-based workout, but it was on the machines. So for anyone who knows, like a ski erg is like mimicking cross-country skiing, a bike, the bike, and then double unders or skips. So the problem with machines is the big man usually wins, because you're not holding up your own body weight. So it's not like watts per kilo, it's just watts.
Yeah.
So it's in cross country skiing, if you're heavier, well, the harder you push is going to be strength to weight. But on the ski erg, it doesn't know how heavy you are. It's just pure power. But it was 2 rounds of 50 calories on the ski, 50 calories on the bike, 75 double unders. So in the first round, I was not in last, but I was like near the back of the pack, and I was pushing hard. So this was a workout again. I'm like, man, like going into this week, I'm like, these are the workouts I'm going to win. But then after knowing these guys after 2 days, I'm like, man, like, I don't know. Like they got so much power and enough of an engine that I don't stand a chance. But when I got onto the second ski, I could tell that there was some fatigue kicking in for the other athletes. And then when I got onto the last bike, it was on a bike erg. So it's more just like not an echo bike where you use your arms and legs. It's just the bike. And that was where I would say I had the most experience with the feeling of your legs blowing up. Yeah. And I actually got like down on the bars just so I could close my eyes and like not look at the screen. I knew how long 50 calories should take. So I just like closed my eyes, put my arms on still the joke. So my post race interview with my fans was like, yeah, I got aero and I won it. We're not moving on the bike, so it didn't make a difference, but it felt right at the time. So I passed like 2 or 3 guys on that last bike to get into third. I didn't win it, but I got into third place, which was a great finish on that one, and a fun way to like build a little bit of confidence again in a workout. And then yeah, the final workout, we didn't know it until a couple hours before, and it was like as much of a pure CrossFit workout as you could get. And this is the one where before I was super nervous, pacing like crazy. I'm like, man, I'm in a good position and like I could blow it on this workout. Like I'm good at these 2 movements, but these guys are incredible at them. Like, and Michelle's like, Adam, like you put yourself in this situation. Like, how could you ask for anything more than to be sitting in like a top spot amongst these guys? Like, then she used the term like pressure's a privilege, like to embrace it, like enjoy it. So my mindset shifted there, and I'm like, I kind of threw my game plan out the door because I knew what they were going to do. We watched the ladies go before us, and it was 20 muscle ups, which I guess you have to know what a muscle up is, but a very high skilled movement. And like all of the ladies did 20 in a row. And it's like, oh man, 20. Yeah, they just do 20. And then like right into the dumbbell snatches. So I'm like, I need, like my strategy was to break it 3 ways, like 9, then 7 or 6, or 9, then 7, then 4. And I'm like, it's not going to be good enough. So I just went as long as I could, not to failure, but like, let's say failure minus 1 or 2. That got me to 15. I think only one other guy broke it. Everyone else went unbroken. So I still got to the DB snatches like almost in last, but I got 15 and 5. So I told myself in the like waiting area, I'm like, you're going to have to do, and I said this to Mark the other day, I'm like, you're going to have to do something you've never done before, but you're going to have to trust that you can do it, right? You're going to have to trust that your fitness is good enough to do it. And it's like, put yourself in a cool spot. You've trained harder than you've ever trained before. Just believe that even though this isn't your game plan and not your strategy, like you're going to take a risk and your body's going to be able to do it. And, the workout didn't go perfect. It wasn't my best finish, but I pushed way past the limits of what I thought I was capable of. And I finished the workout in 3 minutes, which I don't even know if I could do 30 dumbbell snatches at 70 pounds in 3 minutes on a normal day, let alone do 20 muscle ups and then 30 snatches. So the fact that the winner did it in 2.5 minutes, it's like, you know what? It's just like, that's all. I'm happy with what I did. Kudos to them for being able to do it better. But it was a cool way to finish, just from mental toughness, mindset position where I push past what I've ever done before. And I think that was like kind of the theme of the weekend is like my lifts. I just trusted the process. Like your coach told you can do it, just like you can do it. Just go for those numbers. Your fitness is there. You might not have ever been there, but you can do it. So
are you somebody that thrives off of like, do you get energy from like the external crowd, or are you more the like internal motivator or combo? Like
I think I have to say like live competition brings out the absolute best in me.
Cool.
Like I think if I did a 5K on my own, I could still find the willpower to dig deep and like push it hard. But if I did a 5K with
in a track on a stadium,
like so I thrive off of that in person. I get like super nervous and like I'm pacing all those things, but I am experienced enough that I channel those nerves and like use them to my advantage.
Cool. And how is that atmosphere compared to, because you've played high level sport before, how did that atmosphere compare to some of the other sporting events you've done, like in your hockey days and stuff?
I think just the setup and it was so world class that it was just like it brought me to another level that I'd never been at. I'm not saying it was like better or worse. It was maybe just my like own energy and mindset made it seem that much better. It's not like the stadium was full. It was just like, but all of my fans were there and like that the focus was on me and my mind. It was on me. So it was like, it was cool. It was cool.
Very cool. And when you look back on it, was there a favorite, this was a listener question, was there a favorite workout you had of the games?
The 5K is the cliche answer because the finish line feeling was like amazing. I think there was like moments in every workout that were my favorite. I think for me when you make that choice, that like shift in the 5K, when I made the choice to dig deep and win it, those are like the favorite parts. And I think I had to do that in every workout at some point. When I made the choice to go for the 15 muscle ups, when I made the choice to there was a set of burpees in the second workout. It was the second set of burpees 10 minutes in. And it's like 21 burpees over this pig, they call it. And, you have every excuse in the world to slow down. It's hot. I'm tired. The workout's over. But I just was able to flip the switch and dig deep and push it there. And then, the sled workout, as disappointing as, those 5 seconds were, I dug as deep as I could, hit the finish line with nothing left. The missed rep, I'll never forget that. But then digging back, I'll never forget, that. So yeah, every workout had its own like special moment, which is really cool.
Yeah, I felt like knowing you, like you would have gone almost away from the 5K one just because you like kind of the adversity. Like those are some of the best moments. It's easy to go to the highlight, but I think the true athletes really show like those resilience moments are some of the best for people.
I'll remember those forever. So I'll remember the 5K forever too. But
you'll look back on those and you'll like lose a little bit of sleep over those, but those are also the moments that you're like, I'm never gonna let that happen again. And that's how you become a better athlete, not the like one where you won the race and you're like, oh, I can do that every time.
Exactly.
Cool. And that was another listener question of like, if you miss a rep, what is your mental process of trying again? Like when you think back to those workouts or even that moment, it'd be so easy when you were no repped and it wasn't clear to you that you were called back. Like that moment of like frustration. And a less, I would say, experienced athlete would have or mature athlete would allow that to derail them. What is your process to recenter?
It actually gave me like an extra boost, an extra drive. Like I wanted to win the workout and then I really wanted to win the workout, like you're going to take this away from me with like, like I'm not going to blame it on them, but like, you got to be clear. If you're going to no rep me, like you got to be loud and clear. Don't just like pretend that everything's fine. Anyways, it made me want to win the workout just that extra more. And I think that's, in that scenario, in the gymnastics workout, I was getting no reps on these pistol squats. I was in a sense kind of just like, laughing it off, not actually, but like, man, I'm doing the best I can here. Like, the judge even apologized. She was clear, man. She's like, no, like, but yeah, there's different scenarios, but the one that like it's going to affect your potential outcome is the one where like I want to dig deeper to win it.
So we talked about recovery in your training, and you'd mentioned that you replicated a lot of that leading into the games, but what did recovery look like in between? Because I mean, we watched all of them and it was almost like a punishing cadence of these workouts. Like, how did you wrap around the recovery, and also what was your sleep like?
So my parents took Madison, check step one, so we could get
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, like preparation, like it's the sleep at night, the risk of like she might not sleep, but they saved us. They took her, so sleep was like fine. I'm gonna get the best sleep I can. You know, you're not gonna get the best sleep the night before a big race comes or whatever. So it is what it is. The warm up and then lead up to each workout was very challenging because you 40 minutes before the workout you had to meet in the corral to walk over to the venue. So this was like, boom, triathlon. 30 minutes before the swim, what do I need to do? I need to take my gel and be sipping on water with lots of salt. So like gel, salt, more salt, because it was so hot. We were sweating so much. You warm up, the workout's only 10 minutes, but you warm up for an hour. Then you wait 40 minutes in the heat, sweating. You're still kind of warming up at that stage. And then you go out on the field, you compete for 10 minutes at your absolute max capacity. Then they had cold tubs right when we finished. So every workout, you just hammered the cold tub. I said we were so hot that we couldn't even feel the cold the first time we went in. And then we got out. And then when we went back in the second time, you could finally, like, you shivered a little bit.
How long did you stay in the cold tubs? Like that first time?
They weren't like unbearably cold. So we could have literally stayed in for like 2 or 3 minutes. Like you could stay in for a while. They weren't like 0 degrees Celsius. You know what I mean? They were like maybe like 50 degrees Celsius. Fahrenheit.
If they were 50 Celsius,
Fahrenheit.
Those are not cold tubs then.
So then right after, I always had my recovery shake, which was like my BioSteel recovery with protein and carbs in it. So I hit that right away. And then if I had like 3 or more hours between a workout, then I would force down another bowl of the oats and protein and fruit. If I didn't have time, then I would just go right to like bananas, sugary granola bar, something like that. Bananas with a granola bar.
I couldn't leave it. Classic gorilla.
I do have some epic pictures with banana. So depending on the time between workouts, that determined like what I ate. I was able to go back to my parents' hotel because they were right across the street for a nap and a shower between one of the workouts the one day. Other days we had like opening ceremonies between our 2 workouts, so you had to like, you know, have all your food and fuel with you for that process. And like, so it was, if you weren't prepared, like you weren't making it the 3 days. Like your energy levels and recovery would not have made it the 3 days. Most of the guys that were in my division had been there many times before, so they knew the process. I would say I was the only guy though conscious of the whole like 40-minute lead up routine. Couple of the ladies had the baby food, which is like, you know, pretty popular. Not as good as gel, I don't think, because anyways, but so they were like a little bit aware, but not as much as I expected. So yeah, I think that helped me. Like, I think that helped me perform at the highest level I could each workout.
Yeah, it's the crossover is so interesting. Like I know Macca in the book that we were reading in the ditch at Olive Garden before the Ironman, he always talks about like why he was the top of his sport is because he borrowed from other areas of the sport. And he actually, as he was prepping for Kona, worked with weightlifters and said like, how do you onboard hydration? And it's just cool how you can take that and make sure that you can recover. But you also mentioned that one of your competitors needed to drop out from heat. So outside of the cold tubs, was there anything else that you did to manage your heat?
I think that just comes down to knowing your limits. Like, I think if you just go out there and attack the workout the same way you would have in a air conditioned gym, well, you're not going to make it, right? So like for me, it was just having enough exposure to heat and training in the heat and knowing my body and what level of like, fatigue I'm at, was the difference there.
Did you do any specific like heat prep? Like but
I
you're
think
kind of
I-
like a
I
regular
think I
sauna user.
I think I did, in the sense of like when I was training with Jack and Emma, we were always like either in a hot gym or out in the heat doing, it was enough heat training that Madison, Wisconsin is very similar climate to here. So we were living in like a similar temperature zone.
Now, you've posted a lot about your competitors, and it seems like, after 3 days of competing, you have this such a high level of camaraderie and also
Yeah.
respect for them.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like?
It was really cool. Yeah. Almost all of them were, we, the second workout had 100 wall balls in it. So we were all destroyed
Mhm.
after that workout. And usually it's like, "Rah, I'm not sore." And we were all like, "Oh my God, we're wrecked." Like we're literally one workout in and we're dead. So that's when the camaraderie started, when
So
everyone,
authentic.
yeah, when everyone was just okay with admitting, like, guys, we're in the 35 to 39. Like, we're not competing for a job here. Like, we're in that mindset. It was like, okay, we're gonna have like, we spent a lot of time together, because that 40 minutes leading up to every workout, you're walking with them, you're talking with them, you get to know them. But yeah, so it was amazing. And like I said earlier on, like I knew they were going to be good CrossFit athletes. I didn't appreciate how good of athletes they were going to be. So that was really cool.
Was there other dads in the squad?
There was. I can't say all of them, but it might have been all of them. I didn't get a chance to ask a couple of them. Yeah, the guy who won it is the dad. The guy in second from Greece, I don't know if he is actually. The guy in third has 2 kids. The guy in fourth, Scott Panchik, one of the like legends of CrossFit, he has 2 kids. I was in fifth. The guy behind me in sixth, he traveled from Lithuania.
Wow.
He has a kid. The guy in seventh didn't. Yeah, so yeah, like it was so cool. Like we were all sharing the same soreness, and like we couldn't squat down to sit on the toilet, but we were still out there competing, and then we all were experiencing the same, like, struggles with family and work. They all, I think all of them had regular careers, and so it was all the same rah, which was cool.
How many of those guys have competed in the individual games before, like the main
Yeah, so
CrossFit
the guy
games?
who won it, Dancer, has. Papadopoulos, who came in second, has. Wong, who finished third, I don't think he has, but he won the 35 to 39 last year.
Mm-hmm.
So just experience. Panchik, who's fourth, has been competing at the CrossFit Games since like 2010.
Wow.
Then me in fifth, no experience. The guy in sixth, no experience, but first ever guy from Lithuania to be at the CrossFit Games.
Cool.
Nice.
So he was a super nice guy. Great athlete. And then the guy in seventh, I think, has competed at the games. He didn't have a great, week of competing, but you could tell he had, the game. He just didn't have it that week.
So speaking of the individual competition, I know you guys stuck around and watched that after.
Yeah.
What were some of the highlights you saw, and maybe anything you learned from watching those guys go at it, guys and gals?
Yeah, I think I was lucky to be able to train with Jack and Emma to appreciate what level the guys and girls are at, like knowing how good both of them are, and then to see them compete so hard. For Jack to finish 27th, and like to me, it's just mind boggling, because I know the level of fitness he has, and to fathom the thought that he's not in that, upper echelon is hard to believe. So that was really cool to watch, and just like take it all in and appreciate what they're doing. And then Emma, like, just the composure of an 18-year-old is just like wins the first event, and then just like calm, cool, and collective, and talking about someone who, like, nothing changes whether they have the leader jersey on or not. We see her at the hotel, she's super chill. she's just a humble person. I think the interview after she got second and said, if you would have asked me a week ago if I would be in this position, I would say, you're crazy. It's not going to happen. So like, I think she's super dangerous because as she gets more and more confidence, she's just going to continue to get better. So yeah, just watching, these youngsters do incredible things is cool.
Would she work with like a sports psychologist, or is that just like her innate that she's forged over time?
I think here's my philosophy, and like kudos to Josh. So they're her coach. Their mentality is not to win the CrossFit Games. It's to just be better than they were last year. So going into last year, they had no expectations. It was their first time at the games. She finished 6th. Going into this year, she knew she finished 6th because she wasn't strong enough. Okay. This year we're going to get stronger. My guess is they're going to reflect on how it went. They're going to hone in on the weaknesses or areas of improvement. And they're just going to focus on that instead of winning, if you know what I mean. So I think it's just the mindset shift from, if I don't get first, I'm a failure, to if I just keep getting better, then I'm, doing everything I can do.
Yeah, the results take care of themselves. So that's cool. It's built into their
mindset.
programming and their coaching, and as a coach too, like that's I would say that's more than the actual training part, especially really a lot of triathlon stuff, is the actual mental game is truly what it comes down to.
And it's so hard because how can she not get caught up in the fact that she finished 6th in the world and not in her mind say, if I don't finish 6th or better, I'm a failure, but it never was part of the conversation. It just didn't come up. It was just, here's what we need to work on. Here's what we need to do. The results will speak for themselves.
Such a healthy way to look at it, but it's so easy to be like, I have this linear approach and I'm 6th and now I'm 2nd, and the only way is to keep going up.
If I don't win next year, right?
But if she plays the long game and does that, you never know, maybe like Tia comes back and suddenly she goes to 4th next year, but keep getting better and probably win friggin' 5 in a row after that. Like,
it's the confidence building year over year. That's to me the most exciting part for her, is now she believes she can be there. Now going into next year, it won't be like, oh, if you would have told me I'd be on the podium, I wouldn't believe you. It'll be like, no, I believe I can be on the podium. Now I'm going to compete like I can be on the podium. And that'll be pretty cool.
She's had a taste of it too. And you gotta think that's like embedded in her now. And the hunger is probably as high as ever, which is amazing. So pumped to watch those guys. And Jack's lift on that one.
Yeah, like,
were you there for that?
Yeah, we were in the stadium for that. Yeah, it was so cool. He's not a cocky or like arrogant guy at all. So to see him do that in that moment, with that pressure, like, it was just so cool. And the smile on his face, like, it was just incredible. So
I watched the video. I think one of the companies or something posted it of like Emma watching it and Jack doing it. There's a really cool one, and like, man, I had goosebumps watching that on Instagram. I was like, this is cool. Like so cool.
I haven't seen that one. Oh, that's so cool.
It was amazing. Goosebumps.
Yeah, excited for both of them. I think Jack is just a sniff away from like he has the fitness. He just needs to use the fitness. If that's, the right way to say it. And that was his first year. So he's on the verge of great things, and it's exciting.
One part of that is just year-over-year experience. And so we did have a couple more listener questions, and one of them is in the line of that. Like, now that you've gone to the games, it seems like those who like placed on the podium or were competing with you have been repeat. And it's almost like once you get that formula, you sort of understand what it takes to get there, what the training looks like. Now that you've been to the games, what would you do differently next year? Or would you do anything differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would show up with a different, I would just be more prepared because I would know the process in advance. I didn't know the process of the 40 minutes and all of that preparation leading up. So I would be more confident and more prepared in the process of that. just like in triathlon, like it's not my goal to be the best in the world at CrossFit or triathlon. It's just my goal to like push the limits and like do the best I can with it sounds without going all in, like going all in, but being okay with like not being the best in the world. So I would, you know, love the opportunity to go again if it aligns with like, first of all, qualifying like to get into that top 10 again. Who knows? Like
Yeah.
it's such a you know small percentage that make it. And then like to get there and yeah, sure, I should get better at my gymnastics, but like I'm not willing to not go ride with the endurance crew on the
We've
weekends.
missed you.
Exactly. And I have FOMO. I have too much FOMO in my life to
Yeah,
just give
that's
up
fair.
one or the other. And I've said that I'll never, you know, dedicate everything to one sport again. I
Yep.
love the idea of, you know, being able to do as many sports as possible. So yeah,
That's perfect. And that leads nicely into the final listener question we have. And this one, it made me laugh because they said it as a joke. It was a non-athlete entirely, where we ask like questions about the games and they're like, yeah, the question is why. But I thought that this like,
Yeah,
let's get
perfect.
deep here for a moment. Like in terms of your triathlon and CrossFit, like
Yeah.
why do you do what you do?
Yeah, so this was a cool reminder to why I do it. Because sometimes I'm like, man, I'm being selfish. I'm doing it for me. And that's okay too. But I do it because I like we have this amazing community and I'm a leader in the community and I want to inspire other people in the community. And like the amount of support and like excitement that came from this past 2 weeks was like incredible. And it reminded me like me pushing my limits inspires other people to push their limits. And that's what all of the fans that were there and watching said, like, our favorite part was the fact that you suffered, like you put everything on the line, and we don't see you do that very often.
Yeah.
And like to finish fifth is amazing, but it also shows like there's other, you know, you gave it everything you got and you were fifth, you know. So that was the coolest. So yeah, funny question, but this was like I need that reminder in these events like this. So it was cool.
You may have needed that reminder, but I feel like anybody that knows you, just like all you do is bring people together and then inspire them. Like it's so cool.
It's literally your job.
Yeah, that's what brought all of us together, is that same vibe.
Yeah, no,
Like, we love
it's
that.
true. And we all push each other.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because I look at our community now and what excites me the most is like wherever I go next, I have people to push me.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite part, is like we are all trying to get better together. And that's my only goal, is I want to do it, but I love seeing other people like get uncomfortable and do the same thing.
So one final question we have for you, and you kind of talked about it a bit, and one of the things I've always appreciated about you is that you don't just do things because you should be doing them. Like it'd be so easy to be like, okay, I came fifth this year, I need to get back to CrossFit Games and go fourth, third. But what kind of lights your fire coming out athletically? Like what are you looking to target, either endurance or CrossFit or something?
I don't know actually right now. I think it's not a boring answer, but I think what I want to do right now is build this perfect program, and not like long term, but that allows me to keep as much strength and as much conditioning as I can right now, until it's such a weird time of year, because if I wanted to race in triathlon, I would have to race now. You know, it's like a weird time of year. Like I would have to be ready in 4 to 6 weeks to race, you know, realistically. So I'm not going to jump into triathlon or endurance season. I don't think I have the window of time to even do like I could, but to do like a marathon or I also don't like to do things without like adequate preparation. I think like for me, a minimum is like a 12-week training block, because I'm already in good shape, relatively speaking.
You're fine.
to specialize in a run or whatever. I think triathlon is even like longer. But yeah, so over the next 12 weeks, I think if I can just, probably get my endurance, like my biking, swim, bike, run back up a bit without trying to compromise as much strength as I can. So then whatever opportunities come up, probably by like, I'll make, I'll have 17 things on my list in the next 2 weeks. But right now, I don't know, the things that excite me, I really want to do a high rocks race. I think that would be like a perfect combination of CrossFit and endurance.
Yeah.
I really want to do, I still have a sub 3 hour marathon on my list.
You need both, buddy.
You need both. Damn it. I haven't been as close as many times as you, but
Just kidding.
I still have that on my list of accomplishments. I really want to go back to the CrossFit Games. I want to crush lots more 70.3s. I do want to do another Ironman. That's Michelle. That's not in the near future.
Yeah, over the next 12 weeks,
Yeah,
there's a different
yeah,
fittest to Jong.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Michelle's got a half marathon coming up in the fall. So that's the number one goal. Making sure that I don't book any fitness over her key runs.
No.
Exactly. Simple as that. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, those are the things that excite me. Yeah, I think I'll do a 70.3 for sure next year. I would have loved to do it this year to like just see what that overlap looked like. Would I have just crumbled and died, or like would I have been fine? I don't know.
I feel like the latter.
I probably would have been fine, but like
you had you were in some good 70.3 shape last year, so it's
I know
it's so interesting to see.
Like it's not that long ago. Anyways, yeah. So it would have been. So I haven't raced Tremblant. I'd love to race Tremblant. Yeah. So we'll see. Nothing specific yet. Now it's like I want to build this really cool training plan that has a lot of strength in it and a lot of aerobic work. Get rid of maybe some of like the gymnastics skills and metcons and that kind of stuff, and just do like aerobic base and strength base for a bit, and then be ready to go whatever way.
I love that.
Good news is when you come back to endurance, lots of new big dogs on the bike to throw down with you. You kind of take yourself.
My God, I know. I had won the striker line time trial, and then it just got totally demolished.
Decimated. Look out.
Yeah.
Unreal. Yeah, that's FOMO. That scares me, but also like excites me a lot. Yeah.
We're here to beat you up a little bit when you come back.
Exactly.
But that's the one thing that from the moment that I met you, like I met you, were making a whirlpool in Masters Swim. Like you were learning how to swim for your half Ironman. And that's how we met. Like you are comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you always seek out that challenge. You're not ever wanting to be in something because you're the top of it. You seek out that challenge. And I know, like I mentioned it earlier, like all of the things, like you sort of set the foundation for me in terms of like all of those things around fitness.
Yeah.
When I first met you, I was like, in my mind, they were completely different worlds. Like I would be an athlete over here, and then I was work over here.
Right.
But you taught us like recovery, nutrition, and like I'm a completely different athlete because of that. Because of that, you are our endurance icon. So would love to know who is your endurance icon.
It's so hard to have an endurance. So, man,
doesn't have to necessarily be endurance related either.
Or icon. We'll stroke out endurance because you're in so many different sports.
A few worlds.
Probably not a good time for a shirt, but maybe one shirt.
Sure.
5 steps win races.
Oh yeah.
What I would love to do is go toe to toe with Hunter Sheriff in like a high rocks event. That would be so funny, or fun. So yeah, not him, but more like a competitor, a friendly, friendly competition. So I have lots of endurance icons in both worlds. I'm going to go with the guy who just won the CrossFit Games, Jeff Adler, because the story is so cool. In 2018, I think I have that right. He was a volunteer at the CrossFit Games.
Wow.
Might have been 2016, but either way, it doesn't matter. And then everyone knew him because he was this super good lifter, but his fitness wasn't good. And then he just worked, like we said, like he just worked on all of his weaknesses. He just ran an incredible, he crushed my 5K time, and he just ran an incredible 5K. He's still one of the biggest lifters in the sport, and he just won the CrossFit Games as this like humble guy who just works hard and just flies kind of below the radar, and I'm guessing does all the little things right, which is cool.
Great choice.
Yeah. Well, we've gone long enough that our dog is huffing at us. It's dinner time. But
Time.
well, thank you. How
Thank
can
you,
people
guys.
follow on your journey? Because I'm sure you made some new fans. Because of this
Yeah, I did. I finally, Coach ADJ finally hit 1,000 followers.
Woo!
And I joke and I say it's 100,000, but it's not 100,000. It's just 1,000. But yeah, you can follow me at Coach ADJ. You'll probably see a lot of stuff for me on the Limitless Performance page or the LP Endurance page too. But anything Limitless Performance or at Coach ADJ.
Well, thanks so much. You're an inspiration. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Guys. Thank you.
Wow, how great was that? I always learn so much from these endurance icons. If you enjoyed the podcast as well, please consider liking us across social media, subscribing to us on YouTube, or giving us a 5-star rating on wherever you listen to your podcasts. We appreciate you and your support so much. We wish you happy training, and we'll see you back next week.